There's something magical about the way I remember that day. The flicker of candles against soft white walls, the scent of fresh peonies drifting through the air, the way my dress shimmered when I moved, like it had been stitched straight from a dream. I'd spent months planning every single detail. Every flower, every song, every step down the aisle had a meaning. And as I looked around, surrounded by everyone I loved, I felt it. That warm, swelling certainty that I was exactly where I was meant to be. Ethan stood at the altar, smiling that smile he always used when he wanted to melt my heart. And it worked. It always worked. He looked so sure, so steady, like a man who knew what he wanted. And what he wanted was me. Or so I thought. I didn't see a trace of doubt in his eyes, not even a flicker. Just pride, charm, and that dangerous kind of confidence that makes you believe you've won the jackpot. I couldn't wait to say yes. I couldn't wait to become his wife. But what I didn't see, what I couldn't see, was Lena, my little sister. Standing just a few feet away in her maid of honor dress, holding a secret like it was burning a hole through her hand. She kept glancing at Ethan, then back at me. I thought maybe she was just nervous or overwhelmed. But she knew something. And in her eyes, I can now recognize it. Panic wrapped in guilt. Because as I stood at the altar with a smile, she stood with a truth that could ruin everything. It's strange how memories can sparkle and rot at the same time. That day looked like a dream from the outside, but now, when I replay it in my mind, it feels like I'm watching someone else's life unravel in slow motion. My dress was tight around my ribs, not from the fit, but from something deeper I hadn't yet named. I kept catching Lena looking at me like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the courage. And I remember thinking, God, I hope she's okay. I didn't know I was the one who wasn't. The photographer told me to tilt my chin just a little, to catch the light. And I did. I was glowing. That's what everyone kept saying. You're glowing, Gemma. But it wasn't glow. It was hope. And hope, I've learned, has a cruel sense of humor. I felt so proud, so ready. My parents beamed at me from the front row. My friends whispered with happy tears. And Ethan looked like a man in control. I didn't know I was the only one in the room living in a fairy tale that wasn't real. Lena didn't speak much during the morning. She helped me get into the dress, zipped it slowly, her fingers trembling just slightly. I thought it was nerves, wedding nerves. She kept looking like she wanted to hug me, like she was about to cry, and I just smiled at her, thinking how sweet she was for being so emotional. I had no idea she was trying to find the right moment to destroy everything I thought I knew. Or maybe save me from it. I wonder if she knew how much weight her silence carried, or how loud it was about to become. People talk about intuition like it's some mystical whisper, but mine didn't whisper that day. It was silent, completely still. I didn't feel a storm coming. I felt peace. That dangerous kind of peace that tricks you into letting your guard down. I laughed with my bridesmaids. I touched up my lipstick. I held Ethan's hand during the rehearsal and thought, this is what trust feels like. I was wrong. But that kind of wrong only shows itself once it's too late to turn back. Lena had always been the brave one in her own quiet way. Growing up, she'd speak up when I wouldn't, defend me when I stayed quiet. I guess some things don't change. Except this time, I wasn't being bullied by classmates or talked down to by a rude teacher. This time, I was about to marry a man who didn't deserve me. And she knew. She had proof. I wish I could say I felt it in the air, that there was some kind of sign. But the truth? I felt nothing but joy, right before it shattered. So there I was, bouquet in hand, heart wide open, seconds away from saying, I do. Everyone waiting, everyone watching. And Lena, standing off to the side, holding a secret like it was her job to protect me from it. I didn't know what she'd seen. I didn't know how much it would change. I just knew my little sister looked like she was about to break. And maybe that was the only real thing in the room. Because while I stood at the altar with a smile, she stood with a truth that could ruin everything. I remember my hands trembling just a little as I held the mic. Not from fear, from happiness. From the sheer weight of the moment. I looked at Ethan and saw my future. At least I thought I did. My voice cracked on the first word of my vows, and the room leaned in like they were holding their breath with me. I had written every line by hand, rehearsed it 100 times in the mirror. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. Just as I started to speak, Lena's voice sliced through the air like a blade. "I won't let you ruin your life." At first, it didn't register. For a split second, it was just noise, some strange interruption. But then I turned and saw her standing, her face pale, her hands shaking. Her eyes locked on mine, and I knew whatever she was about to say wasn't small. She wasn't emotional. She wasn't drunk. She was desperate. And what she said next would burn itself into my memory forever. "Last night," she said, her voice cracking but strong, "I saw him with another woman. In his car, at her apartment, and it wasn't innocent." The room imploded. You could hear gasps. Chairs creaked as people turned. My mother covered her mouth. My maid of honor had just accused the groom of cheating. At the altar. And Ethan? He didn't say a word. Not at first. He just blinked, like he was trying to decide what version of the truth would save him. I couldn't feel my legs. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might knock the bouquet out of my hands. I turned to Ethan, hoping, begging, for some kind of explanation. But all I got was a half smile and a shrug, like he'd just been accused of forgetting to take the trash out. "She's confused," he said, with that voice he used when he wanted to sound calm. "It's not what it looked like." But Lena didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She pulled out her phone, and that's when I knew it was over. She held up the screen, showing photos. Clear, damning, undeniable. Him, leaning into a kiss. Him, walking into an apartment that wasn't mine. Him, looking like a man with nothing to lose. The crowd went quiet. There wasn't a sound except for a baby crying in the back and the low hum of someone's phone buzzing unanswered. I looked around and saw faces I loved, confused, horrified, stunned, all trying to figure out what the hell they had just walked into. Ethan finally spoke, stepping toward me, voice low and tight. "It was a mistake, Jem. One time, it didn't mean anything." But that's the thing about moments like this. They mean everything. You don't just bounce back from betrayal served in front of your entire family. My throat was dry. My vision blurred at the edges. This wasn't a wedding anymore. It was a reckoning. And in the middle of it all, I stood frozen, watching my perfect day unravel like lace caught on fire. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But most of all, I wanted to disappear. Just vanish, like none of this had happened. I could feel the weight of everyone's eyes, all those people who came to celebrate love, now witnessing something closer to a public execution. My hands were still holding the microphone, but my voice had abandoned me. I stared at Ethan, and for the first time, I saw him clearly. Not the charming man I thought I knew, but a stranger in a rented suit. Lena didn't move. She stood her ground like a soldier in a war she never asked to fight. And even though part of me hated that this was happening, another part, the part that had always trusted her, knew she did the right thing. It couldn't have been easy. It takes guts to speak up, especially when silence would have been so much safer. But she spoke. And because she did, the truth broke through the fantasy I'd been clinging to like a lifeline. I finally lowered the mic. My lips were numb. I didn't cry, not yet. Something inside me had locked down tight. I just turned and walked away from the altar, veil dragging behind me like a ghost. The whispers followed me down the aisle, but I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because in a single sentence, the veil of perfection was torn off. And there was no going back to the woman I was 5 minutes before. The bridal suite was supposed to be my sanctuary, a quiet place to breathe before walking into forever. But when I slammed the door shut behind me, it felt more like a cage. I dropped the bouquet onto the couch. I didn't even realize I was still holding it. My hands were shaking, my chest was tight, and for a second I just stood there, staring at my reflection in the mirror. I looked like a bride, but I didn't feel like one anymore. The veil hung limp over my shoulders, like it knew. Like even the fabric couldn't pretend anymore. I unpinned it slowly, methodically, like I was peeling off a lie. The pins pricked my scalp, but I didn't flinch. I needed that sting, something real to anchor me. My lipstick was still perfect, my dress still stunning, but it all felt borrowed now. None of it belonged to me. I wasn't the woman who walked into this room an hour ago. That version of me didn't survive the altar. The knock came soft at first, then again, firmer. I didn't answer. The door creaked open anyway. It was Lena. Her face was pale, her eyes full of worry and something else. Relief, maybe. She stepped inside like she was walking on broken glass. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. She already knew what I was feeling. And behind her, I heard another voice. Lower. Nervous. Ethan. Of course he followed. Because if there's one thing cheaters hate more than getting caught, it's losing control of the narrative. Lena walked toward me slowly, like I might shatter if she moved too fast. I didn't know how to tell you, she said softly, voice cracking. But I couldn't let you go through with it. I nodded, still silent. Not because I didn't believe her. I did. I think some part of me always knew Ethan wasn't everything he pretended to be. But hearing it out loud, seeing it unfold in front of everyone, it's like my heart had been yanked out and tossed into a crowd of strangers. Ethan stepped in next, confident as ever, or at least trying to be. "Jem, come on," he said, hands raised like he was negotiating a parking ticket. It was a mistake. Just one night. It didn't mean anything. He looked at me like that should be enough, like minimizing it would make the betrayal disappear. But it wasn't just one night. Not to me. It was trust. Crushed. It was vows. Broken before they were even spoken. It was everything we were supposed to build, burned to the ground before we laid the first brick. Lena turned to him, fire in her eyes. "Tell her the truth," she demanded. And that's when it spilled out. Not just one night, not just one woman. Ethan stumbled, tried to reframe it, repackage it, but the words wouldn't hold. He admitted to a weakness, a lapse in judgment, like that made it noble. I just stood there, watching him unravel. No tears, no yelling, just quiet, still. Then, without a word, I turned back to the mirror and started taking off my veil. The pins clinked softly against the vanity as I set them down one by one. It felt symbolic somehow, each pin, a lie I'd unknowingly carried. I removed the veil slowly, deliberately, like I was peeling away the version of myself who believed in him. The silence in the room was louder than any shouting match could have been. Lena stood behind me, arms crossed tightly, holding her breath. Ethan sat down in the corner chair like a deflated balloon, mumbling excuses no one asked for. I didn't say much. There was nothing to say. Sometimes heartbreak is too heavy for words. But I remember staring at my reflection and thinking, this isn't how my story ends. I looked like a woman left at the altar. But inside, something different was blooming. Not rage, not despair, just clarity. A kind of fierce knowing I'd never felt before. I didn't come here to be humiliated. I came to start a life. And maybe, just maybe, that life wasn't meant to include him after all. I stood up, taller than I'd ever felt in my life, and turned to face them both. Lena had tears in her eyes, but I gave her the smallest nod, not of thanks, but of understanding. Ethan tried again, some half-hearted plea I didn't even register. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need closure. I just needed out, because I came here to bind my life to his. And now? I was unraveling it thread by thread. Walking back out into that room felt like stepping onto a stage I hadn't auditioned for. The music had stopped. The air was heavy, stiff with tension and curiosity. All those faces turned to me. Guests frozen mid-conversation, family trying not to look shocked, whispers crawling along the pews like wildfire. I didn't rush. I didn't smile. I just walked. Slow, steady. My dress swished with every step, but this time it didn't feel like a bridal march. It felt like a reclamation. The mic was still where I left it, slightly tilted, like it had been waiting for me. I picked it up with both hands, and for a second, I could hear the thud of my own heartbeat through the speakers. My palms were sweaty, but my voice was clear, strong. I scanned the crowd, people I'd known since childhood, coworkers, cousins, neighbors. I saw my mom's face, pale and stunned, and then I saw Lena, standing in the back, arms wrapped tightly around herself like she wasn't sure she had the right to watch. I cleared my throat, took a breath, and said, "This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life." A few people nodded, maybe out of reflex. "Turns out," I added, "it still might be, because I'm walking away." And the room cracked open. I didn't cry. I didn't explain. I didn't defend. I just stood there, not as a bride, not as a victim, but as a woman who finally realized she didn't need to be rescued. She just needed to walk out before the damage dug any deeper. I could feel the hush settle in again, like the entire room was holding its breath. Maybe they expected drama, a meltdown, a slap, some kind of spectacle. But I wasn't here for theatrics. I was here for truth. I looked out over the guests, many of whom hadn't even processed what Lena had said. Some still thought it might be a misunderstanding. Others looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. But I wasn't going to clean it up for anyone. Let them sit with it, the discomfort, the disappointment. That wasn't mine to carry. I turned to Ethan then, and for a moment I swear he thought I was about to forgive him. His shoulders straightened. He even stepped toward me, that same fake calm stretched across his face. But I leaned in, just enough so only he could hear me, and whispered, "You almost had me. Almost." That's when it hit him. Not anger. Fear. The kind that comes when someone realizes the mask they've been wearing just slipped off in front of a room full of people who once believed in them. I didn't wait for his response. I just turned back to the crowd, gave Lena a tiny nod, and then I walked. Not down the aisle as a bride, but as a woman who had just saved her own life. The heels clicked beneath me like punctuation marks on a sentence I had finally learned to finish myself. And as I passed every stunned, silent face, I felt something rise in me. Not sadness, not shame, just power. Quiet, steady power, and the sharp, clean breath of freedom. I didn't rush down the aisle. I took my time, let every step sink in. The petals scattered across the floor didn't feel romantic anymore. They felt like little remnants of something I'd outgrown. I didn't look back at Ethan, not once. Because I already knew what I'd see. A man stunned by the consequences he never thought would come. He thought I'd crumble, thought I'd forgive, thought I'd stay. But I didn't. And that was the real twist he never saw coming. As I reached the doors, they opened for me like a curtain rising on the next act of my life. The sun hit my face. The air smelled different, cleaner, sharper. I took a deep breath and stepped outside, not into shame, but into possibility. Behind me, people began to stir, talk, buzz. The performance was over, and I had rewritten the ending in real time, without rehearsing a single word. I didn't need a groom to feel complete. I just needed the courage to walk alone. Lena caught up with me outside, breathless and teary-eyed. "I'm so sorry," she said, voice cracking. "I didn't know when or how, but I couldn't let you go through with it." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I saw not just my sister, but my anchor. "You saved me," I told her. And I meant it. Because sometimes the happiest day of your life isn't the one where everything goes right, it's the one where you finally walk away from what's wrong. It's been a few weeks. The dress is back in its box. The invitations, the menu cards, the customized napkins, all tucked away in a closet I haven't opened since. At first, I couldn't even walk into my apartment without feeling the echo of what almost was. But now it feels different. Peaceful. Like I've taken back the space and made it mine again. I light candles for me. I play music that fills the silence, not distracts from it. I smile without forcing it. Lena's been over almost every night. Pizza, wine, old movies we used to watch when we were kids. We talk more now than we have in years. I didn't realize how much I'd missed her until I nearly lost myself. Funny how chaos has a way of stripping things down to what really matters. And what mattered was that my sister stood up for me when I couldn't see the cliff edge. That she yelled the truth when silence would have been easier. She wasn't just my maid of honor. She was my mirror. The story didn't stay quiet for long. Someone posted a video of the moment. The mic, the speech, the walk away. I didn't know until it had already gone viral. "The bride who took the mic," they called me. Messages poured in from strangers. Women saying they wished they'd walked away when they had the chance. Men apologizing for things they'd never admitted out loud. I didn't ask for any of it. But it found me. And maybe that's what healing starts to look like. I didn't expect to hear from her. The other woman. Honestly, I didn't even know her name until the message popped up in my inbox. At first, I thought it was a mistake, spam maybe, but then I read it, line by line, and it hit me like a second wave. She had no idea about me, not the wedding, not the ring, nothing. She wasn't a villain. She was just another woman fed the same charm, the same lies, by a man who crafted his stories like a magician hiding a trick. She apologized, genuinely. Not to save face, not to explain away what happened, but because she felt used to. Turns out, he told her he was single. Said I was an ex who couldn't let go, that he was trying to be kind. It was like reading a script I'd never auditioned for, but somehow had been performing in for years. And in that moment, my anger shifted. Not toward her, toward the pattern, toward all the ways women are played against each other while he walks away untouched. We ended up talking on the phone. Not for long, just enough to breathe the same air and understand we were both pieces of a puzzle he never intended to solve. She cried. I didn't. I think I had already shed the last of my tears back at that altar, but hearing her voice, hearing how broken she felt too, reminded me of something important. This wasn't just about me, or about her. This was about truth. And finally being done with the kind of man who builds kingdoms out of lies. I used to think closure came from confrontation, from getting answers, from hearing someone admit they were wrong. But now, I see it differently. Closure is quiet. It's the moment you stop needing validation. It's when you stop replaying every conversation and start planning what's next. These days, I wake up without checking my phone first. I take long walks. I journal. I laugh with Lena until we both snort. I've started living like my heart belongs to me again, not to the version of me that almost said I do. People still ask what I would have done if Lena hadn't spoken up. Would I have married him? Would I have found out later? Maybe, maybe not. But that's the thing about truth. It shows up when you're strong enough to hold it. And when it came crashing down around me, I stood up. I didn't run. I didn't collapse. I rebuilt. And not from the wreckage of a wedding, but from the foundation of a woman who finally chose herself. He planned a wedding. I planned a life. And it no longer includes him. What I thought was the end turned out to be my beginning. And this time, I'm not walking down any aisle unless the person at the other end is ready to meet me with the same open heart I now offer myself. No lies, no masks, just truth, and the kind of love that starts from within.